Greetings, brothers. Today we're looking at Blood Angels. Who are the winners and losers from this Q1 2023 balance data slate for Arks of Omen? We're going to look at everything because a lot of points and war gear did get changed. So I'm going to try and tell you what's good, what's not, and how we're going to build lists in the next 6 months. So let's dive in. Okay, so we're going to be focused on primarily on infantry, but we're going to talk over the points cost that changed just about, including a lot of units I think are going to be relevant in the next 6 months or until we get the next points update. So if you've been sleeping under a rock, quick overview. Armor of Contempt is completely gone. Some of our units dropped 10 to 33% points. Some of the units got free war gear. Usually if you inverse that, it's about 10 to 33% cost in war gear that you've gained. So that's sort of what they've changed. So we're a bit more killy, as in we got free war gear. We're a bit cheaper, so maybe we got an extra unit or two on the board. Other Space Marine armies that prefer like doctrines, like heavy and tactical, are going to get much more advantageous because they can manipulate their doctrines and stay in heavy all game if they wanted to, like Iron Hands. Unfortunately, Blood Angels aren't affected, so it's going to still require us to have a priest or burn CP to get Assault Doctrine early in the game, which means the same as always. We're hiding for 2 turns, or we're throwing away 1 unit a turn, and potentially we're behind. Yeah, so let's take a look at everything, and then we're going to talk about the winners and losers. So I think the big thing that's going to become relevant maybe is Storm Shields, because I was trying to think of an extreme example. An extreme example, I guess, would be Iron Hands with multi-malas, right? So they're -4. So if they were shooting at a Sandguard with Armor of Contempt, you would get to save on a 5-up, right? Because it would be a 2-up. You can ignore 1 point of AP, so you're saving on a 5-up. So I guess like if you got hit with, let's say, 6 multi-mala shots, you're saving 2 of them on average. And probably Iron Hands are going to hit with 6. If they've got a Devastator squad or a Eradicator squad, they're probably going to score 6 hits or 6 wounds, because they're going to hit on like 2s or 3s, probably re-rolling 1s, and then they're going to wound on 2s, right? So like Sanguinary Guard against like a Devastator squad that pops their Cherub, you would expect you'd have to take 6 saves. So 2 Sanguinary Guard would live. So they kill like, what, 120 points? That would be the cost of 4 Sanguinary Guard? Cool. In the new patch, if they stick in Heavy Doctrine, they're going to now become -5, which means Sanguinary Guard to get no save, which means the entire unit is wiped out, so they do an extra 60 points of damage in a single turn. So, to me that seems extreme, and we're going to get into Sanguinary Guard survivability in the moment, but you can see straight away what the strength of perhaps a Blade Guard veteran or Vanguard veteran in this case with a Storm Shield would be, having that 4-up save, right? That can't, the multi-malas essentially waste AP into. A big unit that seemed to get a win from the Storm Shields is the Assault Terminators. The Assault Terminators with Thunderhammers and Storm Shield dropped 10 points per model. And I actually think they were pretty decent, and essentially they're in Terminator armor, so they're a 2-up save. So the Storm Shield actually gives them a 1-up save. So they kind of had Armor of Contempt in a way anyway, in that like -1 they're still saving on 2s, so to speak. And now you get the Teleport Homer for free. So Terminators, and I've got slides broken down for everything, but Terminators with Storm Shields, interesting unit. Classic Terminators with the free options and Homers are also interesting. What are the popular Blood Angels units? Well, we know Sanguinary Guard are popular, and for once we finally get some free weapon options on the Sandguard, and I've been asking for that for ages. So Plasma Pistols and Power Fists are actually not bad choices on the Sanguinary Guard now. Infernal Pistols, I think we're going to see a meta where a lot of people are running Sanguinary Guard with Infernal Pistols. In practice, I think that's pretty hard to do, because the 6-inch of shooting, it's hard to get a whole squad of guys within 6 inches. Even if you are running, like, say, Wrath of Baal to get 2 inches of additional movement, 6 inches is quite short. Like, quite often you might be making a 6-inch charge with +1, right? So that would arguably mean some of the guys in the squad are probably not within 6 inches, so just be aware of that. Death Company with Infernal Pistols and Power Swords dropped 10 points per model. That's pretty big. I think that possibly means people might switch from the Thunderhammer Death Company, which actually did drop 5 points per model as well, but people might switch because the Infernal Pistol Power Sword Death Company is probably point for point more efficient now than the Thunderhammer. The pre-game move, I guess, of 12 inches from Forlorn Fury means that it's more likely those Infernal Pistols are going to be able to get in range, because essentially you can make like a 26-inch turn 1 move if you have the Wrath of Baal. and then maybe get Infernal Pistols in range, and also that's going to be good for killing transports, because you can open up transports with the pistols, kill what's inside with the power swords. Some people had already started leaning into this. We might see more of that and less Thunderhammers. Who knows? People still love those Thunderhammer Death Company. They are a little bit cheaper. The interesting thing now, I think, is 5 Thunderhammer Death Company are the exact same cost as 5 Thunderhammer Assault Terminators. And the Assault Terminators obviously have a Storm Shield, and they obviously have an extra wound, which in a meta that we're going into where everything is more killy again, and Space Marines are less survivable again, an extra wound might be the difference between... Well, I mean, it's going to be very hard to hold objectives with these Death Company models now, or any Toughness 4, 3-up armor save models, or they're going to be difficult to hold objectives with, period. And we're going to get to that. The biggest points drops then are your Terminators, like I said, 10 points per model. Your Bolter Aggressors are 15 points per model. The Flamer Aggressors are 10, so they're not bad. Plasma Inceptors, and I think a lot of people are going to maybe lean into these. They got 20 points per model drop. Plasma in and itself is its own problem, though, in that, like, I really think we need to lose the ones kill your own models, and then I would be much happier with the Plasma Inceptors. I think ones could do mortal wounds, I'd be okay with that, but killing a 60... It used to be kill a 60-point model. It's still kill a 40-point model. You can still lose hundreds of points if you roll some ones with the plasmas. So personally, I don't like them, but I can see why some people lean into them. Heavy Intercessors lost 5 points per model, and they lost 10 points on their special rifle, meaning that the squad's down 35 points, which comparatively is one of the bigger drops here. That's like a 25% drop in Heavy Intercessors, and then I guess another 25% drop almost if you factor in the Helix Gauntlet is Infiltrators, and we knew Infiltrators were good. The Helix Gauntlet gives them extra survivability. The screening could be really useful, and I think we might see a bit of a return of Infiltrators. Now just 100 points per squad, including Helix Gauntlet. Other big drops were Repulsors went down 50 points, and with all the weapons on them, that's significant. Whether or not we can really field them as Blood Angels is unknown. Maybe you could field them with Psychic Fortress, but other chapters that have built in like Feel No Pains or built in Invulnerable Saves might be able to field these more effectively. Gladiators went down, but again I think they're very difficult to field with Blood Angels. They died very easily with Armor of Contempt. They're going to die even easier now. Storm Speeders, the Hammer Strike is the Melta variant. Some of the other variants dropped as well. Again, I question the survivability of this unit for only going down 20 points. The Tactical Warsuits went down 20 points. Some people are excited about this. I found the Tactical Warsuits highly inferior to the Redemptor. Yes, it's a bit cheaper than a Redemptor now, but I think that the -1 damage from the Redemptor is going to eclipse anything you can get out of the Tactical Warsuit. Maybe it's better for another faction again. Impulsors went down 35 points, which is about a 30% drop if you include the Shield Dome. This is a Shield Dome Impulsor I'm talking about. I think that maybe lets Impulsors get played now. So we might see some Impulsors in the battlefield. If I'm going to run one to GT just this weekend, I feel like my list had no survivability, and we're going to get into that in a minute why I feel like that. But yeah, so the Impulsor could be a possibility. The Hammer Full Bunker went down 75 points, which is kind of a crazy amount. That's probably the biggest drop in the entire codex, like a 40% drop. I guess you could run a Hammer Full Bunker now. It doesn't have that much firepower, but for 100 points, it's just going to sit there and blast away and eat up enemy fire. I could see a reason to run a Hammer Full Bunker again, probably better in other chapters than Blood Angels. Stormraven Gunship actually went down 70 points if you run this variant with the Hurricane Bolter and the Twin Multi-Melt and the Twin Las Cannon. You are going to be able to reserve units for 0 CP, so there could be a play around the Stormraven Gunship now. And then finally, the Las Talon Firestrike Turret is essentially like an attack bike or a land speeder with double the firepower, because it's basically got like a 4-shot 24-inch Las Cannon. There's a 33% drop. Again, better for other factions, but could be reserved and just could pop in on the edge of the board and try and assassinate a character or something. Like, I actually don't hate the Firestrike Turret anymore. I just don't know if it's actually going to be feasibly playable. Okay, so let's talk about some survivability. And I took the Sandguard first, because obviously they are one of the core units that we've been seeing people spam to be really effective with Blood Angels. And I basically worked out how many hits it's going to take to kill them, before and after Armor of Contempt, so we could actually work out like a survivability change. And this is the numbers, and these numbers are kind of horrific considering these guys didn't drop anything in points. AP0 is obviously no change. AP -1, they lose 50% more, like they take 50% more losses, essentially what that means. AP -2 means they take 33% more losses. AP -3, they take 25, and AP -4, they take 20% more losses. There's obviously no point reduction. Yes, we could get extra Infernal Pistol or a Power Fist, but I don't think that makes up for the survivability loss, because the way I see it is, most of the time when you were making charge with Sanguinary Guard, you were killing or doing enough damage to cripple the enemy based on like how you were playing, right? So like what was important was that some of your guys would survive to push on into like, make another charge or take an objective or be able to heroically intervene next turn or something. We've probably lost some of that. I feel like these are big losers. Having a few extra Infernal Pistols or a few extra Power Fists, for me, I think the survivability is going to be a real big issue, because on some maps, and I play with tournament terrain often, sometimes there could be an objective, and if we use Data Scry Salvage that I played this week, there was 2 objectives that literally had no cover on them. They just have a -1 to hit, like a bit of like it's like a ruined wall, right? So like I have to just drop a unit onto them, and I'm not doing that with my Death Company because I need them for Fury of the Lost, so I'm not having them get shot off an objective. So typically I might want to put a Sanguinary Guard model onto an objective, and before, I guess, with Armor of Contempt, AP -1 and 2 really didn't scare me at all. Suddenly, AP -1, you're going to roll 1s and 2s, it's going to happen. AP -2, you're going to roll 1, 2s and 3s, so, and having no defensive stratagem on the Sanguinary Guard, that's a big problem with them. So, Sanguinary Guard, you're going to be very dependent on terrain, and I don't like my games being dictated by terrain, because sometimes if you go to, different tournaments have different terrain layouts, some are dense, some are not. If you end up on a table that is not dense, and I've definitely had that happen to me recently, it can be a brutal game, and Armor of Contempt is maybe the only thing that kept me in the game, so Sanguinary Guard, in my opinion, are a bit of a loser based on this, and there's no points changes, like the points did not go down. Okay, Death Company. Again, we've worked out AP -1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and again, the survivability drop-off here is pretty crazy. I think Death Company I'm less worried about survivability, because typically you're going in for sort of like that complete alpha strike. You're maybe not even expecting the Death Company to survive, so getting the points reduction on the Thunderhammers, getting the points reduction on the Infernal Pistols and Power Swords probably makes up for it. So I would have probably said these guys are slight winners, except Fury of the Lost is being removed. I've got another video coming out about secondaries and what's changed, but there is no longer Fury of the Lost. Can I turn my head so you can see what it said? Which in turn will actually hurt the sort of like 3 Death Company build. There'll be less reason to take it. There might be less reason to require those Thunderhammers, because there's no necessarily requirement to fully kill a model or fully kill a unit now, because that's not going to score you any points. So I think Death Company are a draw. Maybe you could take them as a slight win if you weren't running Fury of the Lost. But if you were built into the Fury of the Lost build, and we're going to have a whole other video in secondary, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, if you were building on the Fury of the Lost, then I think they're kind of a draw. But again, yes, I guess they got point reduction. The Thunderhammer model going down 5 points is about 15% reduction. The Infernal Pistol guys going down 10 points is about 20% reduction. That's very low in comparison to what they actually lost from survivability, right? Alright, let's talk about characters, and specifically someone like Dante or Astaroth that had a 2-up and a 4-up, and they had Armor of Contempt, right? Because these characters didn't change in points cost. And what's a bit strange is I looked at some of the other characters, like Helbrecht, for example. Helbrecht dropped like 25 points. But for whatever reason, Dante and Astaroth, none of our characters really dropped except Mephiston, the one Primaris character who arguably was overcosted, but again suffers because Mephiston doesn't have an invulnerable save. But I'm not talking about Mephiston just now. Whether Mephiston's a winner or loser, I think it's probably a draw. The points reduction against having no invulnerable save probably end up averaging each other out, right? for these characters, key characters that get played a lot by Blood Angels, AP -1 and 2, we lose quite a lot of survivability. So our characters are much more susceptible to chip damage, I guess. And that could be, you know, like, I guess before, if you were fighting, let's say, like, mobs of orcs, you could happily throw Dante in there. Now, 50% survivability drop against AP -1. It's pretty significant. And like I said, no change in points reductions. Not really sure why they didn't get points reductions when a lot of the other characters did. Especially because, like, Chapter Master, actually upgrading a Chapter Master got cheaper, for example. So, like, a Chapter Master on a bike now, with a Thunderhammer and an Infernal Pistol, same as Dante, is actually 20 points cheaper. Which kind of makes no sense. The maximum amount of damage Dante can do in melee is 16. The maximum amount of damage the Chapter Master in melee on a bike with a Thunderhammer can do is 18. So why would he be 25 points cheaper is confusing. The rumour that I've heard is that we're going to get a refresh on some of the Blood Angels characters. And Games Workshop don't change the points when the character's going to be refreshed. So fingers crossed that's the case. Because right now the way I see it is our name characters just lost out significantly. So they lost survivability with no point reduction. Many other chapters got points reductions. This doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I know that we were slightly ahead with our 48% win rate, but let's face it, 48% win rate is not a good win rate in the current meta when you've had other armies sitting well above 50 now for a year. So I guess we'll see. But our named characters seem to be losers. Might be time to start thinking about some of, you know, the new Primaris characters all got drops. If we're going to have to take impulsors, so we can have some survivability, maybe there's some play around them. And maybe I'll get into that in a future video. If that's something that people want to see, please leave me a comment down below and we can definitely make that happen. And if you are enjoying today's video in any way, shape or form, then I would love it if you would consider hitting that like button, because well, I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody that likes my content. It helps me out, of course, and helps this video spread to more people and makes the algorithm realize that you like it, which is great. Okay. Yeah, so then I did a bit of a comparison on, like, wounds required to kill with AP -1. So obviously, like, Terminators and Vanguard Vets and Blade Guard with Storm Shields were never really affected. So these models don't have previous values. These are just the values of what these are right now. We obviously know that Assault Turians was a build that was very popular. Against AP -1, their survivability is going to have dropped 50%, which is wild. Relic Terminators, again, against AP -1, it's down 50%. Sangard, it's down 50%. Gravis, it's down 33%. Death Company is down 33%. And Incursor / Intercessors, and I guess any other Toughness 4 troops, really, it's down 33%. So, I'll tell you right now, Intercessors and Cursors already do no damage. Like, they literally do no damage in the current meta. Giving them back, I was going to say, like, the Doctrine change means they do very little damage, maybe a tiny bit more. My experience, though, is they really don't kill anything, right? They didn't drop anywhere near 33% in points. Gravis, some of the Gravis did drop significantly in points. For example, I think Aggressors dropped 33% points. So they dropped precisely how much survivability they lost against AP -1. So that's interesting. So I guess, like, if you weren't running Aggressors before and you're looking at them thinking they dropped 15 points per model, that should make them competitive. Well, actually, against AP -1, they dropped the exact same number. So they didn't actually change here. Whatsoever, right? Like, the Armor of Contempt drop didn't change them. It maybe gave them a little bit more damage. They, you know, like, their AP, because some armies will no longer negate with Armor of Contempt, like their Bolters 1 AP in Tactical, or may negate, like, I don't think they're really negating the Power Fists on Aggressors, but anyway, you see what I'm saying? So This is interesting. The ones that stand out are Centurions and Sanguinary Guard, two of the core units that were really getting used to make Blood Angels competitive over the last sort of 6 months. So both of them look like they're really hurting. AP -2, because obviously the numbers are going to be different, just the way that the dice roll. So Assault Centurions go down 33% in survivability. So do Terminators, so do Sangard. Gravis, Death Company, and Cursors drop a little bit less, 25%. AP -3, the Assault Centurions were back to 50%. Gravis, Death Company, and Incursors drop just 20%. And then AP -4, Assault Centurions and Sangard, Gravis, Incursors all down 20%, Death Company and Relics down 50%. It's interesting, isn't it? It's like, this is why maybe the Storm Shield builds might come back. And as I say, the one that really screams out at me is the Terminators with Storm Shields got one of the biggest points reductions. They got a 25% point reduction and nothing changed with them, and they were already survivable. So I think Terminators with Storm Shields, hands down, look to me to be like one of the biggest winners. And this won't just be for Blood Angels. Like if there's other armies that can run Terminators with Storm Shields, like I was going to say Death Guard. It's not Death Guard. Dark Angels, Deathwing Terminators. They're going to be pretty interesting. Pretty much anything that's going to have a Storm Shield, right? Because the stuff that doesn't have Storm Shields has lost of survivability. And bear in mind now, a lot of stuff will not just have shifted that 1 point. All my numbers are based on things will just have shifted 1 point. My example before where I talked about the multi-meltas, they'll have shifted 2, right? Because essentially you lost Armor of Contempt and the enemy's now in their preferred doctrine. So it's actually going to shift 2 points. So in some cases we're saying the Assault Centurions, they could have been saving on 4s before. Maybe now they're just saving on 6s against the same weapon. So it's not just 1 point of like down 20%. It's like down 20% plus one other point which was down 30% or something. So yeah, survivability for non-invulnerable Marines. It's kind of crazy how much we've lost. Just before I go on, I played 2 games last week and I actually held nothing for the first 3 turns in both games. And that was using an older style Death Company, Sanguinary Guard, spamming list mostly, all T4 Marines, no Storm Shields, and I think the only invulnerable save in that entire list probably, well, I had 2. I think I had Lamartez and a Chapter Master on a bike. They're the only 2 invulnerable saves in the list, and it felt pretty rough. It felt like I couldn't hold anything, and it felt like a lot of time I didn't even get to make saving throws. You know, like, I'm getting hit with -4s, well, I'm just not getting to make saving throws anymore. So yeah, this gives you a picture of what's changed in terms of raw survivability. So, what else have I done? So I think I've broken down each unit, and tried to say if it's a winner or loser. So, Gravis are potentially a draw here. Heavy melt rifles are being free, along with the multi-melt. This could be pretty interesting. They could also be great for reserving, because you can just bring them on the edge of the board within half range of the 12 inches and like D6+2 with regulars or D6+4 with heavies. You know, they obviously lost survivability. The survivability they lost doesn't make up for their points changes, but they are a bit more killy, I guess. So I'd say these guys are probably like a draw. Aggressors, like I said, 33% point drop for bolters, 25% drop for flamers, but this is going to probably be struggled to be offset for Blood Angels because, again, without reserving them, and I don't think we can take a repulsor as Blood Angels. Like maybe Black Templars or Iron Hands can run repulsors because they have more survivability, but I don't think repulsor is a viable tactic due to the lack of invulnerable save, and again, if it's hit with -4, there's just going to be no save. So you could reserve your aggressors, but then you're basically throwing the dice on an 8-inch charge. Is that possible? You know, we've got no way to guarantee that charge, and And the final thing to say is, like, have these guys actually got any better? Because the 33% point drop pretty much negates exactly how much survivability they lost. So I guess aggressors for me are a draw. Inceptors, so Alpha Strike for Inceptors is probably much more potent point for point. People love the plasmas. People think that they can. You probably need to spam these. I've tried them a bunch of times, just a 3-man squad, and I think it never seems to work for me. But it seems like people think these are going to be a clear winner. There's obviously the strat we can play Descent of Angels so we can hit on 2+. Maybe you need to run them in 5s or 6s now. I've had value out of bolter suppressors before, actually. So maybe plasmas just need weight of dice, and 3 is maybe not the right number. But it seems like people think this is a winner. I think I can get on board with it being a winner. I'm probably just not going to play it myself. Heavy intercessors. I think these guys are winners based on, like, they've got more guns. They've got probably, I mean, they've got better survivability than all our toughness 4 Marines, right? They can also, and they can also get +1 to their save through a stratagem. They can also get transhuman through a stratagem. They've got sticky objectives. We're also going to get the return of Oath of Moment, so you want some sort of unit in the middle of the board that's a bit more durable. So I think Heavy Intercessors might be a winner. The survivability loss for basically like Incursors, Intercessors, and then only slightly more points for the Heavies, and obviously there's 5 more wounds in the squad. I can get on board with Heavy Intercessors being a winner. I actually, look at, here's a Heavy Intercessor right here. Oh god, I just dropped a piece of him. I'm painting them literally right now. So yeah, Heavy Intercessors are something that I'm working on. Terminator wise, I think the Thunderhammer Stormshield guys are big winners. You know, they're down 25% in points. They don't lose any durability. They now get the free teleport homer. They're the same cost as 5 Death Company with hammers, and based on the numbers that we saw back on the previous slides, they're 200 to 350% more survivable. So, again, you'd be rolling the dice on an 8-inch charge, but realistically, if you could take 3 squads of Death Company with hammers before, you could take 3 squads of these Terminators with hammers before, an 8-inch charge 3 times, you're gonna. I always say an 8-inch charge, it's a 9-inch charge with +1, but an 8 on 2 dice for a deep strike charge. If you've got 3 of them, you're going to make some of them. And each squad is 300% give or take survivable. If we need bodies to sit on objectives, if we need tough, durable units, then maybe Thunderhammer Stormshield Terminators could be a winner. You could also put a couple of Lightning Claw guys in the squad just so they don't get bogged down. What do I say about Lightning Claw or Lightning Claw Combi Bolter Terminators? This would be like your Relic Terminators. Again, they're hurt against chip damage. I guess they get some free weaponry on there. But overall, I think they're probably a draw. They do still have an invulnerable save, and that probably is why I see them as a draw, because they have that 5+. And then Chainfist Terminators, I guess, like if you were going Chainfist Terminators because you wanted to take like a Cyclone Missile Launcher and a bunch of like Storm Bolters, they got a little bit cheaper. Again, they have potential with 3 damage and they have 3 wounds. It could make them seem decent. Terminators, it's hard to say this and not have some people flame me, because some people hate Terminators and Blood Angels lists. And even though we have like that really cool Blood Angel specific Terminator kit, which I love, and I'm actually going to buy another one now because I think I only have 8 with Thunderhammers built at the moment, and I want 10, just because. But like some people look at the power of the jump and say the jump is the most important thing. Well, the jump isn't a very important thing, but also holding objectives is an important thing. And if your 2 wound models can't hold objectives, and these guys are only 165 points now, and they have a built-in invulnerable save, and the ones with Thunderhammers are going to be even more survivable because of the Storm Shields, I think I'm going to have to try them. I mean, I've done okay in events with Terminators over the last year or so. I quite like just dropping them into cover for 1 turn and then moving them out and then charging, and that's something you can do. Like in turn 2, they're not that great anyway because they're not an Assault Doctrine, so you can drop them into position of cover further forward on the board with a view of moving out and then charging. So I think Terminators win, draw, draw is kind of where I stand. Toughness 4 Marines. So Blade Guard veterans, we know that there was no change there. So they're exactly the same as they were before. They fell out of favour when Armour of Contempt came in and made a lot of other models, like the other toughness ones, like Sanguinary Guard and Death Company, a lot more survivable. With them being nerfed, although nothing happens with the Blade Guard veterans, I think we're going to see a return of Blade Guard veterans. I really do. Probably in a Shield Dome Impulsor. At least that's what I'm going to try first. I think Infiltrators are a small winner because the Helix Gauntlet's going to give them basically, they drop 20 points, which is like a not quite 20%, but they also get the free Helix Gauntlet, so it's like 25%, and the Helix Gauntlet protects them the entire turn, or then once per battle round, you know, and they also have sticky objectives, which is a real advantage if you've got guerrilla tactics. So Infiltrators, I think, are a small winner. Incursors, they've got the free mine, they've got a drop in points cost, their AP is better on their knives when we get to turn 3, they get sticky objectives, so again, I think they're a small winner. And then I guess I've said Assault Intercessors and Intercessors. They drop points, they get some free weapon upgrades, they get sticky objectives, and I think the sticky objectives is probably what pushed it for me. If there wasn't sticky objectives, I think these guys would probably all be draws. I think they actually lost a little bit of survivability versus the points cost offset, but I think being able to stick an objective could actually be really powerful and may actually help you win games. Whether or not you can do that in theory, I guess, depends on the rest of your list. But I want to say the troops, and this is the first. So troops, I've finally said, are a small winner at a time where we actually don't compulsory need to take any troops anymore. But I think personally, I'm probably going to take a squad of Infiltrators for the backfield, and I think maybe a squad of heavy Intercessors to push on forward. Whether or not I take 3 squads of troops is out on jury right now, but we'll see. Okay, so like an overall sum up of what's changed in terms of survivability, I guess. Centurions, Sanguinary Guard down 50% against AP1. Gravis, Death Company, and regular troops down 33%. Against AP2, Centurions and Sanguinary Guard down 33. Gravis, Death Company troops down 25. AP-3, it's down 50 for here, and 20. And AP-4, it's down 20 and 15. So Sanguinary Guard and Centurions are hit the hardest right across the board. It's going to impact those builds significantly, I guess. All other survivability hit hard too. Troops, Gravis, and Death Company. And remember, this is just factoring in the loss of Armour of Contempt. If you are fighting an other Marine player or something that has Doctrines and now has additional -1, then these numbers just spiral up again to, you know, like this becomes 80%, this becomes 60%, like it kind of gets crazy. So Marines into Marines, these units, I guess all these units, have lost quite a bit of survivability. Whether or not the point drops make up for that, I guess we'll see. I'm going to GT this weekend. I got 5 games to do, so I'll report back and let you know how I feel. I'm feeling a little bit apprehensive, to be honest. And I've built a list that I've not had any practice with because the points came out basically like a week before the event. Or the points came out, I think, on like the Wednesday, and the list needed submitted on the Monday, so there's literally no time. So that's where I'm standing. But I just wanted to get all this information all together and get it in your hands so that you know / you can make the best decisions for your upcoming lists. So any final thoughts from me? It definitely feels like Marine durability is going to be hit pretty hard. If you can get a hold of better weapon options, it's going to be important as we're going to die much faster. So like if you have magnetized your models, then you can get infernal pistols on your guard, or you know, power hammers, that's the new one, thunder hammers on your assault intercessor sergeants. Make the best models you can, because it's going to be important, because everything we have is going to die faster, so we need to kill faster if possible. Psychic Fortress, I think, could really make a return. We haven't seen it in a long time, but I guess if you think most of our stuff is on most of our stuff is on a 3-up save, Psychic Fortress gives that 5-up invulnerable, which essentially is going to let you ignore anything over -2 AP. However, there are more things that ignore invulnerable saves in the meta now, but I still think Psychic Fortress could actually make a return, and we could see some play around that. And if you did want to take that Firstborn / Terminator Librarian, then he's gone down in points as well, as has the Chief Librarian upgrade. If you are going to take Psychic Fortress, I really recommend you take Chief Librarian and make him the Psychic Master, because you need it to cast reliably, and a cast on a 5 is a lot more reliable than cast on a 6. Shield Dome Impulsors could be a winner here. Definitely think that we could see more of the Shield Dome Impulsors. Storm Shield Terminators jump out at me. Like, they are the biggest winner in this, in terms of just like, they didn't take any hit on survivability, and they lost 25% of their points cost. Storm Shield Terminators do work. You know, they definitely do work if you wait till turn 3 and have them as Assault Doctrine, or put them in cover in turn 2 and then charge out. And maybe they can be in cover and join a Priest or something turn 2, so they can get them in Assault Doctrine there. And anyway, okay. Heavy Intercessors, Infiltrators seem to be much better than new points costs. I think it's just the free Helix Gauntlet, along with the, like, I guess almost 20% drop for the Infiltrators, makes Infiltrators feel better. There's also Chaos Demons to worry about, so they're just going to be much better at screening. I feel like a squad of these guys can do better, and I guess having Doctrines actually affect them and not have to deal with Armor of Contempt means that if your Infiltrators ever do get into combat later in the game, they might actually kill something with their bare fists. Same goes for Heavy Intercessors, however. Oath of Moment is making a return. They've actually changed Oath of Moment, so it's going to be 2 points at the end of the player's turn rather than battle round. So basically, if you hold the middle at the end of your turn, you're going to get 2 points, which is so much better than the end of the battle round. So I see Oath of Moment as one that's going to be definitely scoreable. Heavy Intercessors moving to the centre of the board. It's a real option, I think. 115 points. And there's some interesting options as well with their guns as well. Then there's some unorthodox options. They would be your Hammerfall Bunker, the Fire Strike, and the Storm Raven. These things have actually become playable in a weird sort of roundabout way. They've again probably lost survivability, but the points drops and the reserve changes give them some play, I think, that they maybe didn't have before. And it's some sort of, it's really an Alpha Strike play, right? In that, like, you could have a Storm Raven coming in from Deep Strike with like a Dreadnought inside it, and like you could put 5 Assault Terminators inside it or something else. And you come in, unload all its guns, unload the Dreadnought and the Terminators, and then make charges, and it's very Alpha Strike, but you couldn't really do it before because it would cost you about 4 CP to put the Storm Raven in reserve. Well, now that is free, so there's some play there. So this is my initial thoughts on everything. There will, of course, be other videos coming out that talk about different changes to the rules, and we've got Arks of Omen, the book, coming out just tomorrow, actually, because this video will release on Friday. So thank you so much for watching. Leave me a comment down below if there's any unit you think I might be sleeping on, or there's any unit that I was overly critical of, or there's any unit that you think is definitely going to get more play. The one unit we didn't really talk about here possibly is Vanguard Veterans. I did include them, Vanguard Veterans, with the Storm Shields in the graph here. And I guess if you look at them against Sanguinary Guard, against AP3 and AP4, they're actually like reasonably decent. There's no change now between Vanguard Veterans with a Storm Shield on AP1 and 2 to Sanguinary Guard, I guess, unless you're getting hit in melee and the Sanguinary Guard -1 to hit. But that -1 to hit for me in the Sanguinary Guard always felt like the lower common denominator, because a lot more people have rerolls to hit, for example, than like perhaps rerolls to wound, or like the enemy can't manipulate their armor save. They can typically manipulate their hit roll. So I always felt like the -1 to hit Sanguinary Guard in melee was weaker than I would say it's weaker than an additional point of toughness. And that's one of the reasons I always take the Chapter Master on the bike kind of over Dante, because I think that toughness 5 is always going to be better than -1 to hit. But it just feels like rerolls to hit are much more common than rerolls to wound. Maybe it didn't in previous editions, but it definitely feels that way in 9th. Okay, so yeah, Vanguard Veterans, if you want a fast moving survivable unit now, you can see here against AP -4, Vanguard veterans are a ways ahead of Death Company and Sangard, and -3. And they are a little bit more expensive if you want to do the Lightning Claw Storm Shield build. That's 31 points per model. But someone did mention you could now take a Power Sword for free. So if you were smart enough to magnetize all your Vanguard veterans, Power Sword / Storm Shield at 28 points per model would actually probably be possibly one of the best options, because with Blood Angels +1 to wound, you typically wound infantry. But, like on 2s, statistically the Lightning Claws might be slightly better just because of the rerolls, but the Power Sword would have 1 more EP. But I guess Lightning Claws will kill much more now, because Armor of Contempt was one of the biggest enemies of Lightning Claws. In some ways it was a big enemy of Chainswords as well. Like, Chainswords felt a lot weaker after Armor of Contempt came out. So that's kind of it. That's kind of everything that I want to talk about today. If there's anything else that you want to leave a comment about, please do, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you ever so much for watching. By the blood are we made strong. Peace.